Welcome back to another Age of Empires 2 guide. This is going to be on RMS, which is random map scripting. We're going to try to make a more balanced version of Nomad called Polar Cap. That's what we came up with. Some of you might be familiar with Rage Forest, a more balanced version of Black Forest, and use that as an example of how to do RMS scripting. So I'll be jumping in a few times this as future call-in to give a little bit more insight, since most of what you'll see was filmed live on stream on Twitch. So yesterday, as I was riding to work on the trolley, the conversation in Basket's Discord came up about making a new version of Nomad. There's a few depictions. Let me get to the start of this, figure out how it started. I think consistency of resource bonds are kind of lame. You walk 10 tiles in any direction, you're guaranteed to find a boar. So that's one thing that Basket's brought up. I guess we were just thinking of fun team game maps. And so the discussion came to Nomad as being a great team game map in this Discord community. I Love Baskets Discord. I Love Bascord, I guess is what it's called. We do play Nomad fairly often, like maybe once a month. And we play a few games, and there's always a good turnout. And so conversation went on and on about what we'd like to see, about golden stone placements, where people spawn. There's some other depictions, examples of other maps that have been made. We'll get to those in a second. And then this is what Baskets finished up explaining. Nomad start. All villagers for all players will start in the center of the map. The center of the map has frozen terrain with no resources that can't be built on. So players are kind of forced to go further outside. Gold and stone are X tiles from TC, so you can't TC both gold, stone, and woodline. So really this means gold and stone will be a certain number of tiles away from the wood and each other. Hills near wood lines are reduced. That's to allow you to drop a town center next to pretty much any wood line. Nomad / coastal style water around edge may reduce in the corners a bit. So just try to keep the water relatively even all around, and then no landlocked, because landlocked just makes it frustrating to play. That means just water continues all the way on the outside. You can go with any direction with ships and be able to get all the way around. So those are the goals, and we are now, and then, oh yeah, I can't forget, Basket's provided a few depictions. So this is his rough draw up, I guess, in paint. Paint skills looking pretty good with the fish and the wood lines and the green circles. Yellow is gold and stone is gray. So we're looking for an even distribution, and then the ice in the middle that you can't build on, kind of like Ghost Lake, and I guess the black dots are ants, aka villagers. Funny enough, there was that Spirit of the Law video recently. I haven't watched it yet. I don't know if I will, but about researchers using Age of Empires as a model for ant movement. So I guess that's why units path like they do. They're as smart as ants. And we went over some troubleshooting, but let's talk about map scripting real quick. A few resources up here. The first one, and most important, is the definitive random map scripting guide put together by Zetnus, and I'm sure with help of a bunch of other people. But this has so much information. You have the syntax skeleton. I don't know why this is... We'll zoom in this way manually. I don't know why this is set up like this. Or Docs isn't providing all the resources that it normally does. But the syntax skeleton that you have for any random map script has these sections that are capitalized. And these are the sections where you add the code into. So player setup, land generation, elevation generation, cliff generation, terrain generation, connection generation, and objects generation. And that provides all the information to the game to set up the random map script. And so it has pretty much every command. Like if we go to land generation, you'll see he lays out every command as if, like you have for any support document, for any library or whatever, for any scripting or coding or anything like that. All very professionally laid out. Beautiful to see. And some examples as well, which are very helpful. So honestly, better than a lot of support documents for professional services or whatnot. And it goes into depth. So this is available. You can just look up definitive random map scripting guide. And then you can also find the random map AoE2 Discord, which provides a lot of help and has resources linked. And it looks like it's constantly being updated like September 4th, 2020. I guess was the last time this was posted, but it is being updated with new patches and such like that. What other resources do I have? AoE2 map. This has quite a few maps. So if you want to see how someone did something, you can take a look at different maps. And I think, yeah, you can download the map as well and see the source file. What some people do, however, is they shrink a lot of the white space and when they host the map on Age of Empires servers, Microsoft servers. So it's not formatted in a way that's very useful for humans to look at it. So for example, if I wanted to download one of TOS maps, I can't remember the example I was thinking about. I was watching him cast some of T90's Titans League recently, and I was thinking like, oh, how did he make, maybe it was Spiral. How did he make Spiral? I don't know if that was actually one of his maps, but just an example. How did he make Spiral? Maybe I can go into the random map script and take a look at how he put it all together. But if I download it just from the game, and I'll show you where that is in a second, he consolidates it so it loads faster, but it's not easy for humans to read. Future Colin jumping in here for an example. Here we have a map made by Crazini. It's called Inundation, but he's removed a lot of the white space to make the map load faster when it's in game, but obviously very difficult for humans to read. So this is an example of why it's nice to have the unremoved or uncondensed version of the map available so people can look at what strategies you might use to make certain features on the map. But he did say he would be uploading it to his GitHub. So this is TWest's GitHub, TWestdura. I'm sure other people have maps. If you search AoE2 random map, like I looked up the really aggressive map that has rock terrain around the forest, Land Madness. Because the version that's currently in the game is very difficult for me to understand, just coming at it, you know, as I'm learning random map scripting. But the original version that was in HD, that was created for that, is a lot simpler. I guess I have to look at RMS. And you can find the original post. This isn't the original post, but I think it's on AOK Heaven or something like that. And you can look and find people's scripts. And then, of course, there's the ones in the game. So the normal file path for that is Program Files, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, AoE2DE. Actually, let me go to where you find it, the built-in maps. So that's AoE2DE, Resources, Common, DRS, Game Data X2, and we have all of the maps found in the game. Acclivity, Acropolis, African Clearing, so on and so forth. And you can open these in just a normal text editor. So if I go to open with, there we go. And I'll just say Notepad just for the sake of everyone else watching. And you'll see, boom, player setup, land generation, things that we saw in Zetness's guide, all right here, familiar stuff, and then a lot of else if statements and such like that. These versions in DE are a little bit more complicated than what they would have in HD because they have seasons. So that means different types of trees, different species of trees showing up depending on the thematic season for these different maps. Some maps that are built just for like tournaments might be a little bit simpler where they're not worried as much as maybe the Forgotten Empires developers are making the maps. And some, I think like something like Amazon Tunnel might be a bit simpler. Oh, it does seasons as well. Okay. I thought it might not have seasons. But what we want to do today is take a look at Nomad and edit Nomad. So I'm going to find Nomad here. I'm going to copy it. And if we want to edit maps, we're not going to edit it in this folder. We want to leave the standard maps alone that come with the game. Instead, we're going to go back to Common and go to Random Map Scripts. And we're going to paste it in here, and then I'm going to rename it to what Baskets came up with, the name Baskets came up with, which is Polar Cap. Space shouldn't be an issue. I don't believe so. Let me double check. Are there other examples of maps that have spaces? I think there are. Where are we going? DRS, that's right. And game data x2. Oh, there actually aren't really any examples of... Oh no, Elite Peterson Warboat. I forget what that is though. All right, maybe we won't have a space in there. We'll just keep the hyphen. So go back to random map script, and we're gonna hyphenate polar cap. Or underscore it. I don't think hyphen. And I'm gonna open this in VS Code because people have made very nice color coding to go along with this. And we're gonna find the relevant areas to edit the map. And what I'm also gonna do is open, or actually let's open this first and just show you how to test this in game. And it should just look very much like Nomad at this point. I might have to restart the game because I already have it open. But we go to single player, and to get to the scenario editor, we click editors. We just can create a new scenario because all we're going to be doing is loading the map. It's very simple in here. So we change to random map on the left side. Size doesn't really matter at this point. We'll go to 2-player. And we should see, like, I have my own map called Chaparral that I've made a few times, and so that's showing up. There's version 3, version 2. So you'll see, you know, it looks very much unlike any map you will have seen in the game because it's not completed game, it's completed map, and then something. I thought I had test file in here. I don't remember. Okay, there's polar cap. There's the map we're trying to work on. And right now it just looks very much like Nomad, which makes sense. So we will be going back between VS Code and polar cap and or the game itself, polar cap in game, and seeing the changes we make. Land generation's up here. Base terrain is water. Voda is the Slovenian or Slovakian word for water, I believe. One of the Forgotten Empires developers spoke that language, so some of the there is water as well in here, but some of it's just left as Voda. You'll see that for some other resources. I think shorefish is one of those items. All right, so first off, we're creating the player lands, or the base terrain's water. So that just means when we start off, we're just going to create a blank map that's going to be all water. Here, I'll show an example of commenting everything out. Oh, I can't do that very easily on this. I guess if I remove all the player lands, so I'm going to save this, Control S, and we'll generate the map again. And look, it's all water because we've commented out creating the player lands. So we're creating player lands. We're setting terrain type to layer A. That's defined future colon jumping in again because it takes 30 minutes for present colon on stream to figure out where layer A and B and all those are defined. They're actually defined in a separate file within the file system called fseasons.inc, and they're just defined to constants. And those constants are just numbers, but they're defined in these next two spreadsheets you see on screen. The first one is providing constants for objects, and the second one is providing constants for terrain. So two other very helpful spreadsheets. I believe both of these are linked in the first document I showed you, the definitive random map scripting guide. So this next section is actually going through the scripting process. I left that in there to kind of give you an idea of what my thought process is and just give you an idea of how long it can take to guess and check what these different values will do. Seeing, like, for example, I try out first to make the ice in the middle using terrain generation instead of land generation, and then move on to land generation. So during my stream that took all of 2 hours just to do the first half. I can upload that as a separate unlisted video if you're really that interested in my process. But for most of you, I think you'll want to skip to the summary portion where I'll go over the major changes I've made to this Nomad generation here in Polar Cap. So terrain type layer A, land percent 60. So out of the whole size of the map, 60% will replace the water, or it'll take up 60% of the map. Base size is 8. That's referring to, that's just specific to player lands. The right border, left border, top border, bottom border, how far it'll be away, and it's random between 7 and 9 tiles. We'll touch on that later when we get to the water. Border fuzziness, zone 1, Otherworld avoidance distance clumping factor. And then we're creating terrains. So we have primary forest, primary patch. So once we get to terrain generation, we're slowly replacing layer A. You see layer A come up multiple times with other terrain. Woodies is another name for forest. Again, translation change there. We have layer B, Woodies B, and then we're replacing the layer B we have here back to layer A. So that's like a way to make rings and kind of help separate resources from each other. But we're going to keep most of this the same, I believe. Let's just start off by adding the ice. So I'll comment in the title, so this is central ice. I'll keep it consistent, capitalize it all. Create terrain. I'm guessing ice is correct there. And actually, let me check if ice is used anywhere else. We have Karasek. I need to check what that is. Future colon again. Karasek is one of those Czech words that did not get translated to English. So here we have Melkariba, Karasek, Voda, Melsina, but Karasek is not ice, so we're all good. And so the only ice is here. So we're not going to lead into like any overlap where ice was being replaced somewhere. Should be all good. So base terrain is layer A because that's the only thing that's in the map at this point. Layer A. Spacing to other terrain types. I'm going to set it right in the middle. I have to look up what that command is. So we're going to terrain generation. Okay, so let's test that and just see if it works. Spacing to other terrain types, and we'll say 20. And we'll just see how this goes. So I'll save that, go back to the game. And it looks like we have this ice right in the middle. And it's not exactly round, so I'm guessing it's not super constrained yet. So let's bump up the spacing to 50 and see how that generates. And it's gone, so that's too high. 30. It's still present. Oh, we also should say how much of the land it's going to take up. So let's say land percent 20. We'll start off with. And again, there's a lot of guess and check to see how it looks. This is pretty square. I think it's constrained by the water just not being super exact, so we might have to change how the water spawns. Let's do a few more generations and see how much variation we have. All right, I'm going to try something different now. I'm going to just try to make a new create player lands, a new land to be in the center, because that you can constrain to the position with land position at percent X, percent Y. So we're gonna do, can we just copy and paste this? Yeah. After create player lands, though all of them are, I believe, are updated at the same time, created at the same time according to the document. Terrain type ice, land percent 10, land position 50-50. So let's try that, and we'll comment out this creation and see how that alters our item. I guess I don't have to do that. Oh, no, I do. I forgot. This is just cosmetic. It doesn't completely understand whether the comment's closed or not. This, if I remove this, this would actually be commented out, even though the color doesn't change. So save this and go into the game. Okay. This is creating an issue because of where the water spawns and the voiding of other lands. I think this is because of avoid lands. 9%. Other zone avoidance distance. Let's set this to 0. Would remember that was 7. Yeah, and then we do have some water. But we can replace that with ice later if we need to. I think. He thought wrong. And then let's set the zone to 1. Okay, so there seems to be some automatic avoidance when it's a different zone number. And I'm actually glad that whoever made this Nomad map actually set the zone of the player land here, otherwise I might have forgotten. Okay, we finally figured that one out. That's nice. Just in time for that ad break to finish. So yeah, I just changed the zone 1 for the created land. So now the zones are the same, and there seems to be something that automatically separates 2 different zones, even when other zone avoidance distance is set to 0 for each of these lands. Cool, and I can change this back to ice. Boom, we got our ice in the middle. It only took 2 hours, or an hour and a half. Let's go. Let's also remove all of my switching back between quicksand and ice here. Alright, I think we'll leave our ice like that. It's nice like that. And now we're going to go with how the players are spawning. So right now they're spawning randomly all over the place. And that's just in Nomad fashion. Let's look at... is it villager? Let's see. Create object villager, set place for every villager. If ludicrous map, placement's 45. Otherwise, minimum distance between villagers is 15. And we're avoiding the forest zone by at least 2 tiles. And minimum distance group placement. I don't know what that is. Minimum distance and tiles at individual objects of the same create object command. And all future objects will stay away from each object. Okay, so that just means it'll stay away from everything else, like relics and kings. And well, I don't think there'll be any kings. Just any object that occurs afterwards. Forests are obviously created as terrains rather than objects, at least for the most part. So you can't create the villagers first and say minimum distance group placement, but for everything else you can. Distance of 2. So actually, I could set this up. This will help me create the berries and make sure the villagers aren't trapped in berries as long as the berry groups are small enough. Where we at? Create land, terrain ice, zone 1, land ID 12, because there's 12 L's in colon. And let's get back to our villager. Just gonna search for them. There we go. And instead of terrain to place on ice, we're gonna say land. Is it land ID? Oh, place on specific land ID. 12. And test it. Nope, that's not a villager. That's not a villager. That's not a villager. Alright, something's going wrong here. I guess we can try that in our map too. Just setting it on the habitat, the terrain. Polar cap. Oh wait, we got villagers. They're just Gaia villagers. What? That's not intended. Is it because of the land ID? Let's comment that out. Oops. How many times do you think I've said whoops today? And instead, what did they use? Terrain to place on. Ice. Okay, we got our villagers. They're not as clumped as I'd like them to be. Is there a clumping mechanic for objects? There is a clumping mechanic for objects. I'm remembering now, but I don't remember what it's called. Create object, number of groups, group variance, group placement. Let's try group placement. Radius. 3 is a 7 by 7, so if I say 1. Are they closer? No, and it's definitely not. Whoops, this is the wrong map. Maybe that's why it's not doing anything. If I said it was doing something and on the other map, it'd be very much wrong. Yeah, I don't see a difference. This is polar cap. Let's try radius 2. Maybe just couldn't fit everyone in that same radius. No, it doesn't look like it's doing anything. Let's see what other options we have. Set type grouping, right underneath. Set type grouping. Still not giving us what we want. Grouping doesn't look tight to me. As long as everyone's spawning on the ice, we're good. And we're not spawning ice anywhere else. Like if we have a snow map, let's see if any of the vills ever wander somewhere else. Right, that was a snow map. A little bit of lag. Come on, snow map. You want to come back? I know it. Polar cap with the desert terrain is pretty silly. Alright, we have all vills here. Yeah. I mean, there is ice on the outside, right? Unless it's a different type of beach ice. Ice navigable. Looks like ice. Oh, there is beach ice. Created when snowy terrains border water. Looks different from other ice terrains. Okay. So I think we're safe with our ice in the middle. Shouldn't have any villagers spawning anywhere else. You're calling back to finish this off. Summarize all the changes that happened to the map. Total, it probably took me about 8 to 10 hours to make all these changes. A lot of that is looking back at the random map scripting guide just to see what the possibilities are. First off, we have adding, whoops, let me skip one. First off, we had creating the land for the ice in the middle. Originally, I was trying to see if I wanted to use terrain generation, but instead I use land generation to create the land in the middle. So for an 8-player map like this, we just have AI playing here. Everyone started in the middle, and they all had to go on the outside, and everyone dropped their TC almost immediately. And we can see them trying to drop farms next to their opponent's TC. Just AI things right there. The next change was changing the forest size. So completely removing the secondary forest that is default in Nomad, just focusing on the primary forest. So that means these forests are a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more open. If we decrease the forest size too much, then we probably need to add more hunt because it'll be a little bit harder to search for these boars, these deer, just because you have a wider area to search if it's not taken up by forests. And then we also separated these forests from the terrain elevation. So all of the hills are generated earlier in the map before the woodies or the forests are generated. And we wanted to make sure there's room here for town centers to be placed anywhere near a forest. Of course, the AI might not, do that perfectly, but most players, we're building these maps for players, not for AI. The next change was for villagers to all start on the ice, terrain to place on ice. We have them avoiding the forest as well, just so they don't get stuck in it, though it's probably unlikely for that to happen. And then the last big change was increasing the number of gold and stone mines total, but decreasing the number of tiles per mine. So overall, it'll be similar amounts of gold and stone on the map, and also increasing the spacing to forests, so you can't drop a town center and have a forest here and a gold and a stone here. You don't have as many of those crazy nomad spawns. See, pretty big spacing here, fairly big spacing here. The berries I didn't make as big a change as well because I don't want everything to be really dispersed around, and then you kind of get weird forests if you limit where everything can spawn. So that's the map. If you want to see how players play this in a competitive setting, I Love Baskets hosted the map just after we played it, maybe 2 weeks ago now, since it took me a while to find time to finish this summary. So if you want to see how pro players or good players would play out the map, you can check out that video on screen. And if you want to just know how to upload your RMS script, you can check out the other video. So that applies to mods or scenarios, pretty much anything, how to upload it to the AoE2 DE browser, mod browser. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.